Hello and welcome to another episode of Narrative Damage, the TTRPG podcast that gets authors around the table to play games and speaks to some of the leading lights in the TTRPG world. I'm Marco.
I'm Tarek.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us for this episode where we're speaking with someone who is a really well-known name in the world of TTRPGs. Not so much for the writing side of things, but certainly for enthusiasm for it, and also helping, I think, new and old players get into the games, get better at playing the games as well, especially games like Call of Cthulhu, Traveller, and things like that.
That's right. This week we're chatting with the fantastic Seth Skorkowsky, who, as Margot says, he is an author. He's written fantasy fiction. His debut novel is Damorin, which is a kind of urban fantasy with monsters and modern day knights. And he's also a massive tabletop role playing fan. And as you say, Marco, he makes a lot of YouTube videos about games, about gaming, kind of helping people explore that genre. People like me, I feel, probably prime to kind of get me up to speed with what this is, with all the hundreds of different types of games there are, the systems, the character creation models, etc. So all of that kind of stuff, he makes a lot of content for people like me who to get up to speed.
We do chat to him. I should say that this episode is almost like a two-parter in one, because the first half of the episode is chatting about his writing, about writing Damorin, how he did that, how he got that published and all of that sort of stuff. And then we move into more focus on the TTRPG chat. I'll put chapters in the podcast description if you just want to jump straight to the TTRPG chat, but I would recommend you don't. Seth's a really interesting guy, and it's worth watching that first bit as well. And it's I watch a lot of Seth's stuff. It's really helped me, especially with games like Call of Cthulhu and stuff like that. He's really fun to chat to as well. So we'll get straight into it. Before we do, I just want to say we are a new podcast, so try to get found by the algorithm and stand out and all of that sort of stuff. So if you enjoy today's episode, please do give us a follow, a subscribe, give us a thumbs up, all of that sort of stuff, because it really genuinely does make a difference when that happens, and it helps us to be found by people, because otherwise you get buried under the terrible algorithm. But enough from me. Let's get straight into the interview. I always on our sister podcast, Page One, I always start our podcast with the same question, which is, did you always want to be a writer? And I know obviously you are an author, but I just wondered, did you always enjoy telling stories, no matter what sort of medium you used to do that?
Yeah, I think the first time I ever told my mom I wanted to write a book, I was in like second grade. And then I won my first writing contest when I was in 8th grade, so about 13, 14 years old. But then that kind of fell by the wayside for the next few years as I got involved in debate and Boy Scouts and gaming and stuff. So I didn't take any creative writing or anything when I was in college. But immediately after college, when I moved away, and I didn't have my friends just right there anymore, is when I actually started writing and joining writing workshops and that sort of thing. So it was something I really wanted to do when I was younger, and then I forgot, and then I ended up getting back into.
I mean, I think that's quite a common thing, though, that people, you like, doing stories and stuff when you're at school, but then obviously life gets in the way, and there's a lot of other distractions.
Life always ruins these things, isn't
it? Yeah, exactly.
Am I right in saying that you began with short stories? Is that where you kind of dipped your toe back in again?
Well, I started wanting to write the next great fantasy novel, which is terrible. But I started doing short stories really as a way of getting through writer's block when I was having kind of a difficulty on the larger novel. I started doing some short stories on the side, and kind of the common advice everyone said is, before you try to sell a novel, you should also have a few short story sales, to help get an agent or an editor to like you. So I started sending those out pretty early. My first short story sale was 2006, but it took 30 months to hit print. So my first short story publication was 2008. You know, it was 2005 was the sale.
Right. Okay.
Early 2008 it actually hit print.
Nothing in publishing is fast.
No, and
absolutely.
Yeah, over the years, since whatever I've talked with editors and stuff, when which because you send a project in, it takes a long time, and then you talk to them about something else. They're worried that you're gonna get onto them. Like, when's my story coming out? And I'm always like, look, I understand the speed of publishing. No worries. Like, I'm fine. It's like
it's interesting though that the advice is, sell some short stories before you get into novels and stuff like that, because we've obviously heard that often ourselves, but they're sort of different muscles almost. I think some people are very skilled at writing short stories, and some people are very skilled at novels, and it doesn't always necessarily cross over because they're different skills, as I say.
No, doing a good short story that has a nice beginning, middle, and end, introduces your character, and whatever the objectives and obstacles are in that short little time is a different skill set. I think it helps for novels to because the problem is when you read a novel, sometimes you have the urge to take your time. But it's a different sort of skill set. An example I'll give as far as when you try to take that format and change it is with current streaming TV shows now. One of the common phrases you hear when somebody says like, "Oh, you should watch the show," is like, you have to give it an episode or two.
Yeah.
And because if you take the season, let's say it's 8 episodes, if you were to map that season out as one story, you can actually see the standard like raise of escalating tension and goes back down. Except now it's spread out across 8 hours. They were basically taking a 2-hour movie writing formula and breaking it up. So now you're looking at it going, it takes 2 hours, if it's 2 episodes, for me to actually learn to care about the character. That's terrible. Because they tried to take that one format and just extend it. So the different medium of whether you're doing a short story or a novel, you actually have to kind of change how you do your timing and how you do everything like that, because it doesn't simply translate over as like, well, one of them's just a longer version of the other. Like, no, it's
I think the danger of that is that you get, which I often find with a lot of streaming shows, is that the episodes feel like 10 to 15 minutes too long, like they're kind of padding things out, they're kind of stretching things. You think this could be a lot tighter if it was like 2-3 episodes shorter, but obviously they're like, we've got to do 8 episodes and that's set in stone.
Well, yeah, but it's a common complaint people have when it comes to streaming, is like sometimes it's like, I liked it, but if we could just have gotten to this part faster, or if we shorten the whole season by the equivalent of 2 episodes by just tightening them up, whatever, because they're trying to make time slots. So, but I think that's also just a good sort of comparison to what that skill set is of like short fiction versus long is. It's not the same. But a lot of overlapping parts, but it's a different formula, and you have to kind of exercise different parts of your brain.
Yeah, and so you were writing the short stories. You sold this short story in 2005, as you say, but I think I read on your site that you said you went on a writing course in, was it 2011, and you said that it made you realize that the novel that you'd been trying to write, this great fantasy epic, was dreadful in your.
It was horrible. Yeah, so I had started writing that. I was actually about 75% done with a sequel. Like I was like trying to sell the first one, and I was still plugging away at the second one. It had gotten no real, progress on trying to query it. And I got guilt tripped into going to this writing workshop because the convention was, a friend of mine was actually very involved in the convention, so she wanted me to go to it. And then when I agreed, they kind of like bullied me into doing this writing workshop, which I did not want to do, but I couldn't say no. And it was the best thing in the world. So it was hosted by a gentleman named Lou Anders, who had just won the Hugo for best editor, like the month before. And so you're looking at like, this is the most on fire editor in the industry right now. And it was about 20 of us. And so we sent each other, I think, the first 10 pages of all of our works in progress about 3 months ahead of time. And we all read each other's stuff. And then we spent about 3 days doing kind of roundtable critiques, followed by Lou. So you could actually see how he kind of applied his editor eye when he's looking at manuscripts for not just yourself, but for all the other people there. So that was a really good way of kind of showing what worked, what didn't, and different things like that. So I left that pretty resolved that like, okay, my current novel sucks, but that's fine. And I had been kind of tooling around with an idea of another one that I wanted to do when this one was done one day in the future. And I pretty much left and immediately started that next novel, Dameron, like the next week. And so, yeah, it was the best thing for me. But because,
why did you decide to, because you were 75% through the sequel to that aborted first novel. Why did you decide to almost to chuck pretty much 2 books aside and start something as opposed to going back and reworking the first one? What was that decision?
Well, a lot of what it is, I'd always heard of the, authors always have a book in a drawer, like their practice novel. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I would never do that. And when I ended up looking at what all would need to be done to it, the story itself just wasn't that good, worth saving. And as Lou put it, that book taught you how to write. So now that you know how to write, go out and write something good. Yeah. Because I had been doing writing workshops and all this stuff throughout that whole time. So I had learned how to write, but that was just kind of my initial doodling, I guess. So then when I started Dameron, because with that workshop we focused on the first 10 pages, my opening chapter clocked in at exactly 10 pages, because that's what I had spent days kind of hammering how to have like that perfect first 10 pages. So I was like, okay, that was my goal. And then then after that it quickly took off.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously it did work. Lou's advice was right, because you then ended up selling Dameron, obviously, and getting that published. I mean, how did that happen? Did you find an agent, or was it direct with the publisher? How did that happen?
So this time when I went through my query process on that one, because the first time I was like, sending out queries. The second for Dameron, it was very strategic in how I approached queries. Like I made a big spreadsheet of all the agents that I wanted, like who was accepting, because sometimes they close for periods of time, what exactly they wanted, because sometimes they want the first 5, first 10, first 2 pages, or they want a 2-page summary of the whole novel, or various things. And I listed them by priority, and I after crafting my query letter, but I would only send out 5 queries at a time, because if it was a while and I didn't hear anything back, I would then change my query letter to kind of tweak it, because it's clearly not getting traffic. And then very meticulous notes as far as like, this is the day that I sent it. This is about how long they say their turnaround time is. And then I think it was about 8 weeks. I would just mark it as rejected, whether I heard from them or not, because you only hear back from 50% of them. 50% of them you send off to the void.
Nowadays, it's much less than 50%.
And It's crazy. That first novel, that was back when you had to do it by paper.
Yeah.
Man,
Like, because they
adding a even longer stretch to the already long process.
Oh my God, no! Like, yeah, the publishing industry is so far behind at that time that you had to send a self-addressed, stamped envelope or whatever to do it. They would not accept email because I guess that was dirty or something. And yeah, I remember when I my first sale, which was to Black Static, which is in the UK, I had to like find like the international stamps and all that crap for even my rejection letter. Oh, so horrible. But now it's like, yeah, you have about 50%. I would hear anything from them, which I consider the death by a thousand cuts, because you always kind of hope that you'll hear an acceptance. And I finally just say, look, if they write me back in 7 months and they say like, yeah, we want it, I'm not going to be like, well, you took too long, So, but for my own peace of mind, I would mark it rejected.
Yeah.
Send out the next batch of queries or whatever, and just kind of focus on that. But it's a long, horrible process. I did not get an agent, had a few nibbles, and then it ended up that through connections, I had befriended a guy on Facebook who was like friends with some of the short story editors that I'd worked with and different stuff. And they were setting up a new publisher called Ragnarok. They had like just done like a Kickstarter to get started. And he and I had joked online a few times. And so I just sent him a message going like, hey, Joe, when are you guys going to open for queries? Because I have some stuff I'd like to send you, but it was mostly just, when will you be opening? And since he kind of knew me on that kind of Facebook friends level, he's like, yeah, go ahead and send it. I'm like, oh, okay. And they ended up accepting it. So at the end of the day, it still came down to personal connections.
Oh yeah. But I mean, we've talked before at length on the show about using anything you've got in your arsenal to jump that queue, to get in front of an agent, to skip the slush pile, and it's all about creating opportunities for yourself and being able to create an opening and have something written and ready to go that you can then fill the opening with, and you can jump into it and say, I've got something, and so you're kind of creating those opportunities and being ready for them when they're there. I think that's really important.
Oh yeah. And yeah, so I learned really early on that stuff like your online presence with this type of industry needs to be your kind of professional self. So even if I'm joking stuff, I will not put the raunchy jokes or all the same stuff that a lot of my friends will. And I had to have like a few talks of like, hey man, can you stop like posting this in relation to me, because it's very different. Your online face is your resume. So I learned that very early. It was only years later that my friends started figuring out like, oh, jobs pay attention to your online profile. It's like, welcome to my world. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, it still came down to, I had made connections. This guy liked my really dumb jokes that I would make. I remember specifically what it was we connected over is my wife went out of town for work, and I thought it would be a nice gesture to replace our crappy kitchen faucet while she was gone. And everything said, this only takes a couple hours. Like 3 days and 6 trips to the hardware store later, which has now extended past the weekend. She has come home and I have the water shut off. And I was
did it for you.
I was doing it online in the form of prayers to Crom, like from Conan the Barbarian, when he gives his like little prayer to Crom, but it was all dealing with plumbing problems. If you do not listen to the hell with you. And it just kept going because my saga of like, well, now I need an O-ring that nobody has anymore. Just this huge thing. That was how I connected with Joe. Is him watching the saga of my prayers to my short project.
But you did get, the connection worked. You got published, and then obviously that became the first of the series, the Valdecan series. And I think subsequently, probably of the success of that, you did find an agent a few years later. Is that right?
Yeah. So it's probably like with anything, it's a whole lot of nothing until it's a whole lot of stuff. So over the years, I've been publishing my Black Raven series, which is kind of fantasy thief heist short stories. Very, very, very pulpy. Very intentionally super tropey and pulpy. And I had one person who wanted to actually publish those as a collection, and they wanted this. So they basically, I sold that right after I sold Dameron finally, and then the editor realizes he was actually kind of over his head. So Ragnarok picked those up as well. So they picked up my Black Raven series at the same time they picked up my Valdecan series. But in the ways of small publishers, they got themselves in some financial hurt and ended up going under eventually. And at that point, I was 3 books into the Valdecan series, and I had the 4th book like in the pipe ready to go. And I ended up pulling my stuff from them, and then Audible Studios, who had done the audiobooks for all my stuff, and the first 2 Valdecan books were Any Award finalists for like best supernatural audiobook of the year, so they knew who I was, and they ended up I ended up selling it to them as an Audible original, just directly with them. Once again, it all ends up being connections at the end of the day. But when I was done with all that, I decided I wanted to write a different book, and I did Ashes of Onyx, which is not related to anything. And so I decided to go the agent route for that. So I finally managed to get an agent, but at that point I had already sold like 4 novels and 2 short story collections. Which is, I guess, a little bit more than the old, like, get a few short story sales. It was like, look, I've got this catalog of stuff I've done.
That's right.
Someone please return.
You can listen to these books now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. It felt like I was starting all over. It was horrible.
What do you prefer doing then, out of the short stories and the novels? What do you prefer writing?
It's different itches. A good short story is fun. I try to get through those as fast as possible, because you want a short story to feel short and quick. So those aren't something that you ponder for a long time. It's usually once you kind of have the urge. I try to get those done pretty quick. And novels are the things I can kind of slowly ponder and really think about, and go back weeks later and redo scenes that I've already written and that sort of thing. So it's kind of a different thing. Novels to me are like a long-term project that you just kind of you're back to working on some sort of big project. Well, short stories are more like, I don't know, if you have a weekend and you could either replace a kitchen faucet and deal with that, or knock out a short story.
I mean, do you almost use the short stories as sort of palate cleansers, I guess, from the novel writing? Yeah.
Oh yeah, and like I said, they were like my whole Black Raven series was born out of moments of kind of writer's block when I was kind of like working on the major novel, and I was like, I mean, I'm not really sure what to do here. I'm like, the words aren't coming. I would knock out like a little 6,000 word thief adventure, and then once I was done, that had kickstarted my brain, and I had taken a break from the big project, so now I kind of had this fresh eyes. I could go back and be like, this is what I'll do, and I could keep going. Or occasionally I would have you're done with the short stories, like, oh, it was such a great rush, and then you knock out another, and then you go back to the major project. So
yeah. And when you're when you're writing, whether it's the short stories or the novels, are you someone that, there's the classic writing distinction, the planner or the pantser.
Yeah.
Which camp do you fall into?
A little of both. So with a story, normally how I'll do it, like even whether it's a novel or a short story, I usually have moments that I can visualize very perfectly. I don't know how we got to that moment. I might not even know who these people are. But so most of it for me is building these segues between these moments that I have kind of captured in my mind. And what's funny is very often those are not like the great moments in the short story or the novel. They're big moments for me, but for the reader, they might not even really notice them because sometimes it's like an entrance into a room or a certain just moment that isn't necessarily like the most like incredible thing to read, but it was the part that was stuck in my head that everything had crystallized from there. I used to always say it's like, well, no, I'm a plotter, until I met plotters. And it's like, oh no, I am nothing like those guys, because those guys are like weirdly obsessive. So I'm
Five
like,
spreadsheets and stuff like that.
oh yeah. And like, it's like mine is like a stack of Post-it notes and in no particular order. So I'll kind of say I'm probably more of a pantser just because I've met plotters. I'm not that.
Although we've sort of said that there isn't actually, I suppose at the very extreme end, like you say, you get your plotters that are very detailed and everything like that. But a lot of people seem to fall in the middle, and they might think of themselves more in one camp or the other. But even your pantsers sometimes will, they're almost using that first draft as to almost like develop a plan, where a planner would sit down and write a long outline and stuff like that. So
I don't really do like outlines, or at least nothing organized. It's kind of in my head of like, okay, so we'll do this and we'll do this and we'll get here. I know with Dameron, I did not know like how it was going to end, or really what the book was about for, I guess, the first 3 chapters. And the reason is the first 3 chapters I had pretty well visualized in my head before I had ever written it. But I didn't know where they were going or a lot of stuff. And so that was one where it's like, I'm just going to start. And by the time I get to the end of the stuff that I have in my head, I think I'll know what I'm doing. And that's what ended up happening, is because finally I had a fire to go, okay, who are these people? What are they doing? Where are they going? Why are they doing it? What's the antagonist, blah, blah, blah. So by the time I got to chapter 3, I was like, okay, I know what we're doing. But I did start it with like, man, I hope the idea comes before I finish.
I mean, I think looking at when it comes to creative writing, whether it's a short story, you're writing short stories, or you're doing books, or you're doing scripts, or games, or whatever. I do think it's a kind of nebulous thing that kind of you get better at in your head, but it's very hard to quantify or see, like on paper, what's improving. I think certain jobs you can see the skill in a kind of visual way, like the actual action that you're doing, or the I'm not sure I'm saying this very well, but I feel like the more I write, the more I get to the end point quicker. But it's and that's why I feel the improvement is that I feel like I kind of have an innate grasp in my head of, I want to plant something here in this early scene, and I don't know exactly what it is, but I know I'll come back to it later on in a way that it's more streamlined, whereas earlier stuff I was writing was very much like throwing everything in, redrafting it and editing it, loads of editing. And I feel now I can do less edits. I kind of get closer to that final draft in my first draft, and I feel that's a kind of nebulous improvement when it comes to creative writing for me.
Oh yeah, no, my writing speed has greatly improved. Dameron took 24 months.
Okay.
Ashes of Onyx, which is longer, took 15, I think. And it was just, one, I'm more confident in the writing, but two, there is a lot of just that stylistic skill set that you have developed of being able to write it, I guess, well, the first time, where you're not really pondering certain things. You're like, no, I'll just write it. And when before there is a lot more, I guess, uncertainty, where you're not as just as proficient in doing conversation scenes. Conversation scenes, I think, are some of the hardest stuff, because everybody wants it to sound natural, but they're never remotely natural. I can't get in and out of a conversation with another human being as fast as I can in a novel. But they're like, they have their little banter. I get like across the 3 points of information I need to relay.
That's so true.
And then we get out of it. And it's like,
end a phone call without saying goodbye. Just
but it's one of those things. People are like, "Oh, the dialogue's so natural." It's like, no, it's not.
Nobody talks like this in real life.
My buddy has told me a 45-minute story that it wandered.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
By the end of it, I had no idea what the hell the original point was. Like, that's what a real conversation is. We're interrupting each other, and it's just goofy. Versus like, in a story, in a movie, it's like, man, they're in and out so fast.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because people think of someone like Aaron Sorkin as having great dialogue in his dramas and stuff like that, and obviously they are, you get great monologues and speeches and exchanges between characters, but it is in no way realistic the way these people speak.
Not at all. And Tarantino's the same. I love his dialogue. Nobody speaks like that. 100%. Yeah.
Oh, if you ever want some good Tarantino dialogue in a written form, check out Elmore Leonard.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I remember the first time I did an Elmore Leonard novel, it was like, this is like I'm reading Pulp Fiction. Like, these people talk just cool. Everything. It's such great dialogue. We're like, this is the most stylized thing. Nobody talks like, fun, Tarantino dialogue, or just the depth of Sorkin, or that kind of goofy, Joss Whedon style and stuff like that.
Exactly.
It's not actually realistic. It's kind of like dialogue pornography, it's like, it's a very idealized fantasy version of what actual dialogue is.
That's like. So true. Is exact as that is dialogue. It is fantasy. It's people's idea of what they wish.
Yeah, everyone's got the witty response.
It's the witty response. It's the jokes that they've set up, like four dialogues back, folks talk lines back that they're now bringing home, and it's no one's that clever. No one can keep that in their head.
No, I've always tried to explain to people, is like, that brief little dialogue, that author probably spent hours doing that dialogue that's like real short, and then they went back later and they punched it up to make it, quote, realistic, but it's nobody actually wants realistic. We want idealized realistic.
Yeah, that's very true.
Absolutely. And so on the fiction front, what are you working on just now?
Right now, I'm actually just focusing on my YouTube channel. Because people ask, like, so what are you writing? It's like, video scripts. I'm pretty much churning those out really regularly. And I think the average video script for me is about 3,000 to 4,000 words, and I do 2 of those a month. So it's like, people are like, well, don't you have time for it? Like, you realize I'm still churning out 8,000 words a month, and just
that's a lot.
And, that's before I film it and edit it and all that stuff. So that actually has become my big creative outlet. For writing, has become the YouTube channel, which was not the intention, but how it ended up. But
Yeah.
Everything I say on my cameras is definitely written out well beforehand. And I might not stick to the script, which sucks because I can't just take my script and drop that in as my closed captioning. But it's still very meticulously planned as far as what I say. So, and that's still writing. I still have to make it sound natural, and even if it's or the skits that I do where I've got characters talking to each other. That's all written. So that's become my big writing.
Did it take you time to almost find your voice as you on the YouTube channel as well?
Oh yeah, that's the big advice I tell anyone who's wanting to start a YouTube channel. Is it will take several months to figure out how to be yourself in front of the camera, which does not sound, that doesn't sound like a logical thing, but it's true. To just kind of find your own voice, and because when somebody puts a camera on you, you naturally do a performance. You unconsciously do it. That's a human nature thing, and it actually takes a bit of work to figure out how to be natural and to show what dimensions of yourself, because we're all complicated, multifaceted individuals, but which facets we're going to show for that camera, and just as far as the presentation. When I went to college, I was going into broadcasting, and in the radio world, I went into radio right before radio died. That was a great plan. But there's that radio announcer voice, that hi. The industry term for that is called puking, which is such a great term because it's so fake, but it's that fake enthusiasm, that fake chipper. And they were very much like, don't do that. Sure, some people like it, but most people can tell that's not real. The problem is when you put a camera and a microphone on somebody, it is very easy to, out of kind of your own kind of like self-preservation, to put on a very fake voice or fake enthusiasm. It takes a while to kind of learn to let it go, as Elsa would say, and just be yourself and natural. So I'd say about like 8 months is what it took me.
It sounds almost like preparing to do a YouTube reading or performance, or it's in a little bit is a way like writing dialogue. You're trying to create something which sounds and seems natural, but is actually a bit of practice, a bit of art. It's not really real, but it just kind of seems real.
Yeah, and because people are like, does this feel fake? It's like, no, it's the real me, but it takes a long time to learn how to actually present yourself as yourself. I mean, also in real life, I'm like insanely more vulgar than I am. That was actually one of the weirdest things I ever heard. It's like, I got a comment from somebody like, a friend of mine met you, and like, you evidently cuss a whole lot. Like, oh, I'm extremely colorful in my vulgarities. But that medium does not allow for my true art form to come out. So.
Well, I mean, let's turn to your YouTube and TTRPGs, because that's what your YouTube channel is all about. You decided, I think it was 2014. It says that you decided you were going to start a YouTube channel talking about your love of TTRPGs and stuff like that. I mean, first of all, has your TTRPG love been something that you've had since childhood? Have you always played these games?
Yeah, I first started playing this when I was 13. My 13th birthday, I got the D&D box set, and so I was huge into gaming, throughout high school, college, and past. So in 2014, Dameron released, and I was actually talking with some friends. They're a lot older than us, and he was really into to a marketing thing. He told me I needed to make a YouTube channel. He's like, it's the second largest search engine. You need to be on YouTube. I was like, well, what do I talk about? He's like, we'll talk about writing. Like, I've written one novel. Brandon Sanderson's YouTube channel. He's written like 15 novels in the course of this conversation so far. So what could I say that Brandon Sanderson cannot say? World's better with a lot more credibility. But he put it in my head I should do a YouTube channel. And it actually took a couple years for me to kind of figure out how to do that or what I wanted it to be about. So it was actually in 2016, near the end of 2016, I decided to post my first video about tabletop role-playing games, which was terrible. It was an awful video, but it was the first one. And it's kind of like writing. Once you finally get the courage to start, the second one is easier and whatnot. Yeah. So that first video took me about 2.5 years to work up the nerve to actually do one. And then, immediately after I started working on the next, and then the next, and the next. And, then I started learning like, I should probably buy a good camera, and I should maybe buy a microphone. And I should have bought a better microphone than the cheapest microphone I could find. And maybe I should learn how to edit video and just all of that. So my early stuff was super rough as I'm kind of figuring it out. But it took me a while to kind of figure out what it was I thought I could talk about with any form of authority, and something that I could talk about a lot. Because it's like, well, make a video about your book. Say, okay, it's one video. Like, you can't make a channel off of one video. And it's like, what can I talk about that I could build a channel with? So it kind of took me a while to realize that to go with kind of my second other passion in life, which was gaming, is probably what I should do. And the idea was it was going to help steer people towards my novels. The problem is I hate self-promotion to the core of my soul. I hate it. Yeah. So I just kind of never mentioned that I also wrote books.
Yeah, exactly. Very British approach.
I did this whole thing to market my books, and then didn't seal the deal on that. So it's like once or twice a year I'll mention like, oh yeah, by the way, I've got some novels. And so very regularly we'll have like comments come out like, I've been watching it for years. I didn't know that you wrote books. Like, yeah, that's my bad.
My secret shame. And I mean, so you're someone who writes books, and you work on role-playing games as well. And as I'm someone who's just kind of getting into role-playing games, I'm being dragged into it by Marco. He's a big massive fan. I'm the noob on the scene. But as and I kind of play these game stuff, and Marco is a game master. He runs them, and I wonder, it's different skills it must be to write and to run a game, even though you're telling stories, even though you're creating scenarios and plots and you're moving characters around and stuff. Do you have to? I guess when you're writing a book, you've got complete control, whereas when you're running a game, you've got to step back a little bit and let players make decisions that you might be like, oh, that's a dreadful choice. Why have you done that? But you have to go with it.
A lot of people, and I'll just say, a lot of people who are not authors or are not authors and game masters like to think that there is a lot of skill overlap between the two, and there is not much skill overlap between the two. Because when you're writing a novel, you have one total control. Absolutely everything is under your control. With the game, your job is to kind of create the situation, the setup. Like, what's the place? What's the bad guy doing? Okay, and then present that to your players, and then after that, it's all reactions. You have total control up until the moment you are sitting down with your friends to run the game. And at that point, it's pure reaction of that, because they now have control. And you don't know what they're going to do. And what they do might be stupid.
Often is stupid.
Or their dice might just be sharks. And yeah, so it's a very different thing because you don't have the timing. You're not working on all the same stuff. My friend Mark Fenn, who's also very significantly into both writing and our TTRPG worlds, he had once said something along the lines of like, the only similarity between writing a book and like doing a role playing game is that they both use English, and that's the end. And I'm always like, yeah, because the first time I heard it, it's like, well, that seems a little harsh. Then over the years, I thought about it, I was like, no, Mark was right. He was right. There's conceptually some similarities, but no.
Yeah, but I think like there are, I suppose, not writing necessarily, but an understanding of structure or something like that can be helpful for someone running,
pacing and stuff,
pacing and things like that. To bring in the big moment at the right time that will excite your players and all that sort of stuff. I think.
I think of it more like, so there's different types of storytellers, and there's the storyteller around a campfire, or the person like you're sitting in a bar, and there's that person who's just a good natural storyteller.
Yeah.
And it's a performance style that I think has much more in common with a game master role than the novelist, because the novelist, you can take a lot of your time and you can go back and you can add the highs and lows, while the performer, the storyteller, is feeding off their audience. They have to learn how to sense when they can draw something out or where they need to go ahead and hurry it up, like based off of like the audience's reactions to everything. And that kind of immediate feedback is a very big skill that a game master should have, of being able to read the situation right now. Stand-up comedians talk about that, where if they do a performance, they do their whole set, but it's before an empty room and like a microphone, and they're just recording it. It's like, it always sucks. But if they get deliver that exact same set in front of a crowd, it's a much different performance, because so much of that performance is based off of that immediate feedback sort of energy of like, okay, I need to slow down here, I need to speed up here, I need to emphasize it this way, because I get to see how they're reacting, and that changes the performance. Even if their words are almost identical for an entire set, that subtle difference is the key. And that, I think, is the biggest thing that makes a good game master far more than being able to write a novel.
So then how do you decide, how much of a good role-playing game session is the game master's voice and kind of style or control of the narrative and stuff, and how much of it is the players, is it him stepping back and let the players step forward and introduce their own stuff? That kind of interplay of know when to let them take the reins. How do you judge that?
A lot of it depends. Some of it depends on like what type of game we're doing. If we're doing like, are we doing like a classic dungeon crawl, go kill the bad guy and take his treasure, or are we doing a horror, or a mystery, or whatever that is? A lot of it is, so a GM has to learn how to, this is where you have to suppress your storytelling urge. Shut the hell up and sit there and practice your poker face. And also listen, because these are usually the times where players are throwing out like 500 ideas, and I'm kind of sitting there going like, okay, what will I do if they do this? Because I don't know. At the end of the day, no matter how much prep you do, you're still using just mostly improvisation.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of caulk to like, okay, we need to get to this story beat, and oh crap, I wasn't anticipating him to go this way. But it's learning how to kind of sit there and let them do it. But the other key is you have to also have enough of that almost kind of schoolmaster of like, okay, let's focus up, because my players will talk to the till the heat death of the universe. out of fear of, if we open that door, we know something terrible is going to happen. So they will plan for the next 17 hours to not of what it is. And occasionally I'm like, come on, guys, time's ticking. Do something. I don't care what. just please, I'm dying. So there is that kind of skill set you have to learn of like when to shut up and literally give them the stage.
Yeah.
But you also still have to have enough control to like kind of tap on the table, be like, hurry up, you monkeys, because you are delaying at this point. And I think that is really just something that is done through practice of learning when should I step in and when should I not? When are they talking because they're making a good plan, and when are they talking to help burn time because they're afraid or they don't know what to do, and I need to step in and put a little fire under them so they just go, okay, we just need to commit to something. Or one player's kind of hogging the stage because their character's walking around town shopping and has somehow befriended this one cab driver or something, and I've got 5 other players that are just sitting there. It's like, okay, Ricky, let's hurry this up and get back to the rest of the guys, and kind of learning how to do that. And the storyteller trick comes in is if you are doing that kind of jumping between characters, of kind of dramatically wrapping it up, where it's and then the door opens and a new man walks in. Okay, and over to you, John. And like so you kind of end with those beats. Like you would with a good TV show, where like the moment it ends, your audience, in this case the player, and the rest of the players around the table watching it, are like, oh, something cool is happening. And next scene, next scene.
Exactly.
Working around. That's where the storyteller comes in. You do have to have that disciplinarian kind of headmaster of like, get to the point.
I mean, the system itself as well, the game you're playing, like you said, can also make a difference, can't it? Because something like Blades in the Dark discourages players sitting around for hours planning and stuff like that, and they can use the mechanisms of the game, like flashbacks and stuff, to fix the problems that they encounter because they didn't spend 3 hours planning it and stuff like that.
I haven't tried Blades in the Dark. I really need to.
Okay. Right.
I've heard so much good stuff about it. I am wanting to see what fatal flaw it has that my players will absolutely loathe. Well, because like Blades in the Dark, stuff like those mechanics, I think sound awesome. Oh my God, I really don't want to try it. My players actually don't react as well to a lot of the storytelling narrative systems as they think they will. Like they really get excited about them, but then once they are given those tools, they suddenly become like, well, I really love the crunch. I really love the whole planning it out part. And it's like, but that was the thing that we loved about this, is we wouldn't have to do all that stuff. And so I really want to give it to them. I get them really excited about playing it, so they could then be like, nah. I liked it better when I thought it would be like.
Yeah, no, totally. That can definitely happen. And it does, games like that put more, I think it can surprise the players because you're sort of putting the ball in their court a lot more in terms of deciding what's going to happen and how to advance the story and stuff like that. And some players like that, some players don't like that at all. Yeah.
And I think some of it is Justin Alexander of the Alexandrian had a big thing. It was about like storytelling games where he generally doesn't like them, which is weird because he's been talking about a lot of them now. But so one of his older articles, which I'm like, he phrased exactly how I feel, and now I look at him now and say, what happened, Justin? But he brought up in a lot of storytelling systems, it's done where the players have a lot of the narrative control, and it's all of it's like, you reach into the hole, tell me what you find, and his thing is like, I don't want to say what I find. I want you to tell me what I find. Like I want to solve a mystery and I want to know that I figured out the solution. I don't want to make up a solution and have you tell me that I was, right because I came up with a solution. I want the real answer. He talked about it as the movie Inception, where there's a safe, and he's like, man, I really want to know what was inside that safe, and they never find out. But he's like, I want to be able to open that safe and find out what was in the safe. I don't want to open it up and then be asked what I found. I want you to tell me. I want the answer. So with a lot of the narrative games like Blades in the Dark, where the players do get a lot of that narrative control to like rebuild the situation. My players actually don't react as well to that as we all like to think we would. I don't know. It's really weird. I think there's some of that grognard in them where they're like, no, that's wrong.
No, it's funny you say that because we've just finished playing the Alien RPG, and that is very much a kind of cinematic, railroaded. There's a script that you're playing through a one shot and stuff, and obviously there's variation and there's options that you can do, but everyone's kind of got their mission and their own goals, and there's things happening at certain acts that will always happen type thing. And I found and previously I played stuff that was more open and more like Blade in the Dark or things where you had much more narrative control as a player. And I've actually found, as you say, I actually much preferred having less choice, which is weird because I would have thought having more choice would be a good thing. But I actually quite liked that being pushed on a path and having
your agendas and stuff.
Having an agenda and having to work out how do I advance my agenda in this limited scenario. What do I do in this moment? How do I exploit this moment for myself? I like that kind of pressure almost.
Free League's Alien is so damn good. I can never speak highly of it enough because it doesn't sound like it should be as terrifying as good as it is. Because I guess people have a place where like, well, you're going to come across an alien. Like, well, duh, I know that when I go to the movies. But
yeah, exactly.
And if I don't get an alien, I'm pissed to see Prometheus. It's so good at feeling like you are in an alien movie, and it does that by they really captured like it's the hidden agendas, it's the buddy and rivals, it's the fact that we have these dramatic act moments. We're like, okay, no matter what happens at this point in the adventure, the reactor starts a countdown because of this. And everything changes. Okay, go. And or at this time, these bad people arrive, and what do you do? And and these are fixed moments in time. Nothing you can do will stop this event from happening, but they're going to happen. And now we're reacting. I think they nailed it so perfectly. I love it. It's the only game where I've ever been afraid of running out of air. And I've played a lot of sci-fi games. That's the only game where I'm actually like afraid, like because you're rolling your resource dice. You're like, uh-oh, am I going to make it?
Yeah, 100%.
And even from the GM side of the screen, it is nice knowing that your players aren't going to go and say, right, I'm going to go and shop for 2 hours, or I'm going to go and do this, go right off track, because you kind of know what they're all trying to do. So that helps. Oh, yeah. You run a tense game as well, I think. But
the other thing though with that particular game is ones like it is it's very ideal for one shots, and one shots. It's kind of like we were talking about short stories. We're not going to be taking a lot of time to buy crap. It's pretty much like, okay, characters are in a car, and all of a sudden, the bridge is out, and go, and like what you have on you is what you have, or you've got your pre-generated characters, you've got your stuff. Let's go. We're not, making a bunch of 0 level characters and buying them gear, and then spending all our money from our last exploit. It's usually like hit the ground running. We're going to do this right now, and that is a very different feeling than if you're doing like a long form campaign that takes months or years, where you're going to occasionally have to do a shopping spree. Not in a one shot. So and Alien is very much, since it's modeled after the movies, feels like a one shot. At no point do you see Ripley go to Walmart. It's just we just go.
But actually, just talking about the sort of character creation stuff as well, because I know you're a big fan of the Traveller game, and I've told Tarek about this. We've not done this, but the character creation in Traveller, I think they've changed it now in the new edition, so it's optional. But in the old game, certainly when you were creating your character, in the whole process of character creation, you could die, and so you'd basically be halfway through creating a character, and then the character would die, and you'd have to start again, essentially.
Yeah, in like the original classic Traveller, that was a thing. And a lot of people still talk about it like it's a thing, but it's like Thaco. I mean, it's if they haven't done that in a while. So the current edition, it's not death, but you will be ejected from whatever career path you're on, and sometimes you have, you might get injured, and sort of thing. So you might actually like begin session one where your character like might have a bunch of scars, might have lost a limb, might have a bunch of debt that they've piled up, and sort of thing. That is Traveller's character creation system is amazing, and I find that most of the people that say they don't like it are the people who never tried it, or they're in a few cases the ones who are so controlling of I want to play a specific thing, that they don't really come in with the idea of Traveller, which is like, okay, you're an 18-year-old kid. What do you want to be when you grow up? And it's like, I want to be a space cop. Like, okay, well, you washed out of the academy. What are you doing now? It's like, I'm going to do this. It's like this weird real life thing where it's like, occasionally some people, they know up front, this is what I want to do, and this is what they excel at. But for most of us, it's, this wild ride of unpredictable factors. And, where it's like, oh, you got busted. You went to prison and you spent 8 years in prison and you shanked a guy. And then, you come out with knowing how to these skills that you learned in prison. It's so much fun. I wish more games learned from Traveller as to how to do that type of character creation system, because I've seen ones that where you kind of roll a life path, but at the end of the day, you still knew what you were going to end up with. You're just kind of like, well, now we're going to come up with the journey of how I got to where I am. While Traveller's like, well, let's see where you end up, kid. And it's the complete opposite of you start at the end and you work your way, how I got here, or you start Traveller at the beginning.
And
you don't know where you'll end.
You don't need to worry about coming up with a backstory either for your character. Because it gives you it essentially. Yeah,
you'll come out of it. You've got contacts and enemies and all sorts of stuff, and then you then link your backstories with the other characters as you go through the monumental events of your life. So now you've like got backstories to all other characters. We don't have to do this like, your characters meet in a tavern, and now we have to like have that awkward role play because that one guy wants to be a jerk and everybody else is like, why would my character even like you or meet you? And these like, no, you all of you go back to these war stories, events of your life where each character met two of the others, and it's so good. It's a whole session just making characters, but it's great.
Has the new edition of Twilight 2000, I think, it seems to have a sort of similar character creation.
I haven't checked it out. Who does?
Well, I'm just listening to the Glass Cannon's version of it on their thing, and they created their characters, and it seemed to be a sort of similar system that they were doing with it.
Yeah, because it was also by GDW originally, and I think. Is it Modifius that has?
No, it's Free League. Free League now do it. Yeah.
So Mongoose basically purchased from Mark Miller the entire catalog of GDW stuff, and they left Free League like your licenses and stuff. We're not going to like yank your license. We're not going to be jerks, but so you guys do your own thing. I do know that what was that there was a sci-fi horror game that GDW did. That was. Very like it's like X-Files sort of thing, and I can see it had a beautiful cover. I see it. They're going to do a new version of that,
Right. Okay.
But they say it's going to use the Traveler rule set. So I'm wondering if
Cool.
that includes the Traveler character creation process, because that would be cool. Because I think it's basically like near future, like like no, they actually said the first part takes place in the present day, like right now. So I don't know if they'll do the character creation system like Traveler. I hope so, but they will at least be using the skill mechanics to translate it to present day.
Cool.
I mean, and for people listening to the show who are hearing all these games being chatted about, who've maybe never played one before but love the sound of them and the concept of being a player or a game master, what would you say is the best way for someone to get in to start experiencing these games?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways. A lot of people recommend actual plays, and I am very conflicted on that answer, mostly because actual plays are not what you will experience. So it's a good way to look and see, well, this is what it could be. But when you play it, it won't be like this, because those are the good ones. They're performers, and but to get into a lot of the games, I think it's very easy these days. One, if you're ever wanting to do the rules, almost every game has some form of starter set or some sort of quick start rules that might be free. There might be $1, or like just little box sets that have like some starting adventures and some of the trimmed rules. And most of the ones coming out these days are extremely good. Very rarely do I come across a starter set anymore where it's like, well, this feels like a really crappy investment. Most of them are like, no, they're really solid. They're really good. So then there's a lot of ways through online you can find games. You can find groups of players on, like, I think Let's Play is like one of the websites that a lot of people are using now. And of course there's so many online boards through, Facebook and Discords and Reddits and, different things, that it's not as hard to find players now that we've got online spaces. When before you had to find people.
That's right.
And if you're in a nicely populated, dense area, it's not that hard to find a couple of geeks to game with you. But if you're in the middle of nowhere, that was a lot harder to find people. And so I think that the internet's made a lot of just that casual, let me find some people and let me learn to play. And if you are blessed enough to be near some of the game shops and whatnot that do a lot of like, Friday night game night, show up and find a table, or sort of thing, like those are great. The conventions, they do a lot of stuff like that. But so I think a lot of it's kind of figuring out what type of game interests you, because there are so many. And Dungeons and Dragons is usually the starting platform for almost all of us. Almost all of us started with D&D. But if doing fantasy is not your jam, which is it's very epic hero, it's almost superhero level fantasy. If that's not what you want, you aren't interested in science fiction or any of those stuff, there's a million games of a million flavors, whether it be humorous or whether it be very dark and gritty. There's and everything in between. So because when you say sci-fi, it could be Alien that we talked about, which is a straight up horror game. It just happens to be in a sci-fi environment. Or it could be Paranoia, which is just gonzo and silly. So I think a lot of it's kind of exploring what it is. And online spaces is so much easier to do that now than, way back in the day when I was a kid, and, it was like impossible to find a lot of these things out there.
And is there, I guess, when you're finding a table, when you're trying to get into this and stuff like that, I mean, what in your view makes a good table or a bad table?
It's really difficult for me to answer this because I cheated. When I moved off to university in '98, I put personal ads up around campus, like quite literally had personal ad, lonely game master looking 5 to 6 people to spend long evenings with must enjoy romantic walks down dark passageways. I mean, that's literally from it. I still play with 3 of those people that
Right.
we did. And then like our new guy that we found later on and brought in, he started with us in 08. So
Right.
some people are like, well, how do you find people? Say, well, I put up a personal ad almost 30 years ago, and once you find them, you clutch tight and you never let go. Yeah, I won't let them leave me. But when you're looking for a group of people that are doing it, a lot of it is still, because I still play with a lot of different groups, finding people that you actually can get along with. There are groups where they talk about, they get together and they play, and their entire relationship is just, we play together. And I don't, I don't need to know anything more about you other than what you bring here. Some people are fine with that. I'm not. My lifelong friends have been forged around the gaming table, so I like it to be people I get along with. But I also want it to be people that are there for the same reason I am. I am here to play, but I'm here to play with friends. Some people are just there to hang out with friends, and they really don't care about the game. I learned the hard way. They don't mix well with me because, when I'm at the, okay, guys, let's focus on the game.
Yeah.
They just want to hang out and they just want to chat about whatever. And I'm like, focus up. Learn the rules.
Yes, that sounds familiar. I know.
Well, there are some people, it's like, I just want to play. I don't want to have any of the interpersonal stuff. Like, no, hey, I'm here to actually hang out with my buddies. So we do occasionally stop and just chat like buddies and whatnot. So finding people that are kind of there for the same reason you are, people whose personalities you get along with. Because for me, if you're doing a actual long-term group versus just kind of like getting together at a convention for a one shot, and it's only 4 hours, kind of the one night stand of gaming. But if you're going to do an actual group, you need to have just some good, ability to like communicate and be personal with them.
Yeah.
So you don't have to become BFFs like I did, but you still want to be able to like, they're people I like, they're people I can chat with, they're people that we will disagree on how we're supposed to cross this stupid ravine without it becoming an actual fight. So, I always look for people that I get along with that, once again, they're there for the same reason I am.
Yeah.
Because I have friends I can't game with, and I love them dearly, but we are not compatible at games because they're there for a different reason than me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if there was, is there? I just wondered, is there one TTRPG that maybe it's a bit less well known, or people don't play it as much, that you would recommend folk check out?
I'm just personally biased. I think the BRP, or Call of Cthulhu's core mechanics, is probably the easiest. I can take someone who is completely new to RPGs and I can get them playing in just a couple minutes because I find it very intuitive. Because it's mostly like, with that game, you are not a superhero, and there's not a billion board gamey mechanics where it's like, well, now we've got this token and now we've got this. It's mostly like, you're a guy, like, like you're a guy that, this guy happens to be, a truck driver, whatever, or a detective. And, here's how the dice work. We roll percentage dice. You want to do something, you roll under this and go. And that's it. That's how I can get them playing it. Well, if other games where we have character special abilities and every character has a different special ability, and now they have to remember what their special abilities are, and now we've got a bunch of math where it's like, I roll the dice and I add this thing and I add this, then I take away this, and now we do a percentage dice, and now I've got the inspiration token or luck token or fortune token, whatever it is. Like, those I find so much harder to teach a newbie. So the Call of Cthulhu, which uses the systems called BRP, is the absolute easiest that I have ever introduced someone to, because it is the most just straightforward. I think once we add in a lot of the board gaming mechanics, for lack of a better term, it starts getting confusing.
More and more. Yeah. No,
like a whole list
I
of
agree with
spells and all that sort of stuff. And
Oh
can you
my!
remember what this spell does and all this sort of stuff?
Oh my God! Yeah, special abilities, racial abilities, spells. Oh, yeah. It can quickly overwhelm someone if they're new. And a lot of times it's like, I really just want to be an elf that's got a dagger in a dungeon. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, can we do that? So, but yeah, the Call of Cthulhu BRP system, but that's also a horror game, so it's probably not the best to recommend to people. D&D is a good starting point. I mean,
Call of Cthulhu, though, I feel as well. Another thing that I think is so good about the system is you can play it for like straight horror if you want to play it like that. You can also play it very pulpy and fun, and okay, it's still horror. There's still monsters, but it doesn't need to be terrifying and stuff like that.
No, because BRP was originally made for RuneQuest, which is just a fantasy role playing game, and then it got used for Call of Cthulhu and some of the stuff. So yeah, you can do it. You can do it pulp, where it's just over the top, like Sky Captain, the World of Tomorrow type stuff. You can play it without the horror, because the system can pretty much do a ton of different genres. So and I think if you've got a good system that is robust like that, I remember we originally did Cyberpunk 2020 doing pulp, like 1930s pulp. Yeah, we just removed the cyber, and it was like, it was like, we've got all everything else is here. Let's just do it, and that's what we did. So, I think a good system like that is great. But as a stepping in, I would say, the Call of Cthulhu starter set's real easy. And, very, very good for the money. Very simple to learn. And
nice.
And then you can start trying the games that have 97 different
exactly
token systems or whatever.
Those were the main questions that we had for you, but we end every podcast by asking our guests the same questions. The first of which is, what was the last book that you read?
Hold on, I'm trying to remember the title right now. I'm on a series, so I'm plowing through them really fast.
Okay. Nice.
It's the one after it, but so the last one's title I remember is the Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook, which is the Dungeon Crawler Carl series.
Right, okay.
I finally agreed to try it because I had done some lit RPGs before and they were terrible. So I finally agreed, like, okay, I'll check out this book if you guys shut up, and I'm loving them. So
yeah, I'm at that stage beforehand. I know it's huge, but I have read some pretty terrible lit RPGs before. So
it's far more Ready Player One than anything else. Which if somebody had explained it that way, if like this feels more Ready Player One than like any of the other lit RPGs, then it's like, oh, great.
Yeah.
So now that's currently what I'm plowing through. Is those, which I don't know. I'm like five. I don't know. When I do these series binges, I can't tell you which book I'm on. It's kind of like when you're binging a TV show that's got 9 seasons and you're starting and you're all like, I don't even know what season I'm on, man. I'm just going.
What about the last game that you played?
Last game that I played was, I think the last one I played was our Delta Green campaign that I'm a player in. I think that was the last one.
Nice.
Or I was running our Cthulhu by Gaslight game.
Nice.
So, whichever one. They might have been the same weekend. So, those bleed together. So, one of them I'm playing and the other I'm running.
What Delta Green campaign are you doing? Are you doing one of the pre-written ones, or is it
we're doing Impossible Landscapes.
Oh, yeah. We've done that.
Played that one for you. It was excellent.
And we are a bunch of idiots, and we are currently evidently taking our sweet, sweet time screwing it up. Our handler just ate a pistol, which evidently no other handlers, according to our GA, was like, so I went to the board where people say, help, I'm having trouble. Like, no one's mentioned this one. I killed my handler, but not the handler just ate his pistol, and now we're explaining to the cops what's going on. So, yeah, that's us being a bunch of dumbasses, and it's fun because all of us are like YouTubers or actual play people or stuff like that, and we're like, our kind of agreement was like, we're not recording this, we're just gonna play for us, and it's like. And now that the cameras are off, we can see how quickly the wheels fall off.
Yeah, exactly.
And that everybody at the end of the day is still just a dumbass. It's fun.
And what about what have you been watching recently, either film or TV?
I am watching with my wife a show that is not great, but we're watching it. It's an older show. Well, older as in 2010 to 2016. It's called Rizzoli and Isles. It's kind of a detective.
It's called what?
Rizzoli and Isles.
Rizzoli and Isles. It's a female detective, and her best friend is like the medical examiner. Set in Boston, and it's pretty much just your adventure of the week sort of cop show, but buddy cop show. Except they're women, and one of them is the medical examiner, and yeah, they're fun, but they're nothing to be like, oh my god, you've got to watch it. It's like, nah, these are great. My wife and I are kind of chugging through them at a good speed, but they're more like just, I don't know, visual popcorn. Then
yeah, easy. Turn your brain off, relax after a long day, and just put one on.
And I like a good crime show. Like a lot of times, what we're looking for is like a good mystery.
Mm-hmm.
I need a talker at which I think we should probably jump ahead a few seasons. Is was it there's a British one that's been going on for like 70 years. My parents did Midsummer Murders.
Oh,
yeah. Killed by a wheel of cheese. That's the famous.
It's amazing anyone's left alive in that small village.
It's like this one county where like every episode, like
horrible murder.
At minimum, 3 people have to die per episode, and it's been going on for 20 years.
It's crazy successful. It's nuts. That's Anthony Horowitz.
But they're just fun. So like I might need to get her to like start on season 3 once I guess the writers kind of really got their legs on it. Because we started with like episode 1, which of course was filmed in the 90s because the show's been going on for 20 years. And she didn't really get into it. But then when I'd go visit my parents, and they're of course watching it for their 7th time. I'm like, they're halfway through the season 10 or something. I'm like, these are way better than the stuff at season 1. So I need to somehow trick my wife into watching some of this stuff with me, and then I can get her hooked, and then we can watch that for the next 10 years straight and never watch anything else.
Yeah, exactly. That'll clear the schedule. Yeah.
500 episodes.
Well, the very, very last thing we always do is super quick fire either or, and there's no right answer to any of these ones, apart from perhaps the very last one. But let's begin with GM or player.
GM. Being a player is way more stressful than I remember it being. I like knowing what's behind the door. When you're a player, you don't know what's behind the door. It's really scary.
A one-shot or campaign?
Campaign's my current mode.
Cool. TV or cinema?
Cinema.
Night owl or early bird?
Absolute night owl.
And last one, would you rather read a real book or an ebook?
Not much difference for me, but I would say audiobook.
Yes. Okay.
That's
your choice.
Yeah, I think part of it is like there's a mild dyslexia that I found out that I have, but I could pop it by audiobook, and I'm like doing dishes, and I can do stuff around the house, and I can drive. Like makes commutes so much easier. So once I got like an Audible account, like my book consumption just exploded.
Yes,
because
we've chatted about this in the past. It's a really handy way just to read books. Just filling in, as you say, little gaps in the
production quality on them is going in the last 10 years or something. Is through the roof now.
way back in the early days. So my parents were always like, we road trip places instead of like fly. But except we would do like these like 8-hour drives, and then we'd like, so my mom would go to the library and get some audiobooks, which of course they were on cassettes, and they're all highly abridged. But now we've got, since you can stream it directly into your phone or whatever, you can get, they're unabridged, way better quality. Used to, they were getting anyone they could to read for them. They weren't getting actual like actors. They didn't really have like great setups as far as like studios and all that stuff. Now it's worlds different, and I love it. I don't need like the effects or weird sounds going on, if the roaring crowds or gunshots, any of that stuff, or music. But the talent of voice actors that they get and the production quality is just so good. I love it.
Yeah,
nice.
No, always like a good audiobook. Well, thanks very much, Seth. That was great.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Well, thanks very much to Seth for coming on. I really enjoyed that chat. As I said at the start, I'm a big fan of his videos. They've helped me, get back into TTRPGs at this late stage of my life, having played them when I was much younger. But he's always got great advice, and I enjoyed the chat about sort of these different types of games, because we've played. We played Blades in the Dark, and we've played sort of Alien, Call of Cthulhu, like we chatted about there. And Blades is much more like, I like it a lot, but it's much more a shared burden around the table to tell the story. I think because there isn't any set thing there, so the players have a bit more power, but also more onus on them to contribute to the story. I think, and not all players like that, like Seth was saying.
Yeah, I think that's right. And as we talked about, the kind of difference between something like Alien or Blade Runner, where you've got that kind of gated, narrow, linear story with a little bit of room for maneuverability for players to make choices, but you're still kind of funneling them through a predetermined path, and which is wildly different from the time we played Blades in the Dark, where, as you say, there was a lot more pressure on the players to come up with stuff, and I have to say, it's something which I kept forgetting. I can create a flashback, and I can create story where my character has a skill, and I think being too passive in a game like Blades in the Dark as a player can result in a flatter game. I think you need to be remembering and taking as much of a part in the storytelling as a game master, almost, I think, to get the most out of a game like that. So I suppose it depends what you want to play and what kind of player you want to be, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's not going to work for everyone.
No.
It does give you more freedom, but sometimes with freedom, like you say, too much choice is sometimes a bad thing, and it can kill the story.
As our friend Spider-Man would say, Marco.
With great power. Is that what you were?
Yeah, that was going to say. I was trying to think of a funny alternate line that he might have said, but I was like,
did Spider-Man talk about role-playing games?
Spider-Man says, Blades in the Dark is awesome, I love it.
Yeah, that must have been in one of the newer comics. I've not read that one. But we've got another great guest next week.
We do indeed. Next week we're chatting with the fantastic Kieran Killen, who is known to me, I think, as primarily a comic book writer. And is writing on various video game websites. He's the creator of Rock Paper Shotgun, I think, and he'd written for Eurogamer back in the day. And but we have a separate chat with him on our Patreon podcast on Narrative Damage next week. We're chatting with him primarily about his tabletop role-playing game experience, and he kind of created a bunch of different stuff. Die is a very kind of interesting meta game he's been involved in.
Well, Die is his comic, which focuses on role-playing games, and then it was turned into a role-playing game. So it's like the most meta thing you could do. And we talked to him about that. We talked to him about the Die meta dungeon that a former Narrative Damage guest, Gareth Hanrahan, pitched to him, and is writing primarily, but Kieran's also writing for it as well. And really chatting to him about the sort of storytelling power that these games can can have, which is really,
Yeah.
that's the whole idea behind why we started Narrative Damage as writers, and wanting to play these games and tell stories with these games. So Kieran is he's one of these people that is, I just don't get how he can be so prolific and so creative. But he's a fascinating person to speak to. He's really funny as well, really engaging. So it's a fun interview. So as you said, Tarek, we've spoken to him for page 1. That episode will be coming out in a few weeks, where we talk to him about his comic writing and stuff like that. But next week's episode is focused on the TTRPG side of things. Right. If you've enjoyed today's episode, as I said at the start, please do take the time to rate and review us, because it does genuinely make a difference. Really appreciate it. We want to get those subscriber numbers going up. You can still win a Call of Cthulhu starter set once we get to 250 followers on YouTube. If you've commented on one of our videos and you subscribe, then you're in with a chance of winning that. So don't forget that as well. And they can also get in touch with us, Tarek. I'm going to see if you remember how.
You can get in touch with us a number of ways. You can go on our YouTube channel, look at all the YouTube videos. They're all up there. Watch the actual plays, leave comments there for us to come back to. You can you can look for us on social media, which is
at Narrative Damage
Narrative
RPG.
Damage RPG. Is that it?
That's
no
it.
UK in there.
No.
Throws me. At Narrative Damage RPG. Search for us there, or send us an email, which is Marco at narrativedamage.com. I'm going to write this down one day. One of these days I'll write this down, and I'll make my life easier for myself.
We will get him there. But it would be great to hear from you. As I say, we're this podcast is a new podcast. We want to try and grow it, get support. So please do get in touch. We love to hear from people. And on the actual play side, you can watch our Loki's Gift, the Call of Cthulhu scenario that Tarek and other authors took part in. And we will have more actual plays coming up very, very soon. We're recording those in the background. So, more of those coming very soon. But in the meantime, have a great week, and we'll speak to you next episode.
See you later.